Leeds. It's been 1 year since I began the Light on Leeds podcast, so this week's guest is me. I am interviewed by the lovely Faye Dawson. I tell her all about why I began the podcast in the first place and some of the difficulties that I've overcome. Have a listen and see what you think.
So, Hazel, this is a really interesting one. I'm interviewing the interviewer.
Yeah.
Which is really exciting for your first birthday. Happy birthday to you!
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. What a success you've made out of this. Before we go into what got you started and why and all that stuff that you would normally be asking other people, I think we should probably highlight first that you and I have never actually met in person.
We've never met in person. We were going to, and then COVID happened.
Wow, how dare it! But we met through our joint work of me promoting people and you working for or with South Leeds Life.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I volunteer for them, mainly writing theatre reviews, but also coordinating for people in the community to go to the theatre, people who wouldn't necessarily normally go. Yeah, and then you were promoting a play, weren't you?
Yeah, before this happened, it was a play that was going to the Holbeck, to Slum Low's home.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, it was due to be there around now, I think, May, June. And so we set up an interview. I can't even remember, Hazel, whether that interview with the writer and performer ever even happened.
It actually didn't, because she'd had a terrible family bereavement just before. Because she would have been one of my last ones, I think, before lockdown. And yeah, she'd had a terrible bereavement, so obviously she had things to deal with, so we said we'd get back to it at a later date. But I was really looking forward to speaking to you because the play was absolutely fascinating. It was called Jadek. And yeah, she just sounds like a great person, and this little theatre company that she's running and all the work she does in prisons and stuff. So yeah, I'm sure we'll get back round to meeting up again at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yes, I remember it all now. I remember what happened. So we met there, and then you told me about your podcast and about how you interview fabulous people in Leeds doing fabulous things, and I was like, I know so many fabulous people doing fabulous things. And so we've started on that, and then we became friends on all the social media.
Yes.
As is the way.
Got a very similar sense of humour, I would say.
A very similar sense of humour. We both like cats.
Yeah.
And then you very kindly asked, we were chatting by email, and you said something about the day job, and I said, what's that? We got talking, and I said, maybe I should interview you.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Maybe I should interview you, and that's how it came about. So,
yeah, and because it's coming up for a year as well, you know, so I do my little intros and outros, but I don't really talk much, so I thought, well, yeah, it's probably about the right time to explain why I'm doing it.
Good. So and that leads us nicely into the spotlight on you, Hazel. What on earth started you to do? And I love this podcast, by the way. What triggered you to do this?
Well, all sorts of different things, really. I mean, first of all, anybody who knows me will know that I never stop talking about Leeds and telling them about all the amazing things that are happening and getting, you know, you can just get involved in so many great things. And I know so many fantastic people who do so many brilliant things, and I'm constantly learning about more and more new people, which is fantastic. So at first that's where the sort of thought came from. I thought, well, I can probably stop telling everyone I know if I just put it in podcast form, and then they can choose to listen to it or not. But I suppose it all sort of came about really because, in 2017, my son went off to university, and I've read loads of books about empty nest syndrome and that kind of thing. And my son's pretty independent and used to spend a lot of time at his dad's house and then time with me. So I didn't think I was, I didn't think I was like a needy mum or anything like that. But as soon as I dropped him off at university, it was like a hammer blow, really. It was like, oh my God, like, what's my role now? Not that, it's not like I've had to dress him like I did when he was little or anything for quite a long time. But yeah, it just sort of hit me, really. And I was a bit like, well, what's my role? And I'd been doing a job that I felt was pretty boring, but had been kind of keeping us going because my partner at the time was trying to build up a music business. So I sort of felt like I was like, well, I've been doing this for a long time, keeping everyone going. And I was 42, and I don't know if that's got anything to do with it. And
Possibly.
yeah, and I just thought, well, I'd quite like to have an adventure for myself now that I don't have to be responsible for anyone else. And so I did my TEFL course online. I researched loads of different countries, and I went for Taiwan, mainly because I'd never heard anybody going there.
Gosh, that's incredible.
I just thought I'm going to go for it. And so luckily as well, my boss at my job is fantastic, and she helped me apply for a year off from work so I could return to the same role. Because I think I would have gone anyway. I would have gone anyway and just, in it, risk it for a biscuit. But that was great to know that I had that support, that I could come back and I would still have my job.
Yeah.
And so off I went, and oh my God, it was just the most incredible adventure. It was amazing. I did things I never thought I'd be doing. I'm not, anyone who knows me knows I'm not a sporty person, but I actually climbed a mountain whilst I was there. And it was awful, and I hated it, and I cried quite a lot of the time. But I did it.
That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. I can remember feeling like really scared at this one point. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to fall off this mountain, and this guy's not going to help me. And, people say, like, your life flashes before your eyes, and I thought, well, I would rather die from falling off the side of a mountain after I've just seen a troop of monkeys in the wild than get run over by a bus in the centre of Leeds.
Which is entirely possible.
Entirely possible, yeah. So, yeah, I had a fantastic time, and I was supposed to be there for a whole year, but I managed 5 months, and I loved it. And, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure I would have come back if I'd lasted the full year. And also what was great was my son could come out and spend a month with me whilst I was there as well, because I think he was in the middle of university at that point, so he had his summer off. So he came out for a month, and we both had an adventure together, and it was just amazing. We had the best time. But then something happened within my family that I don't really want to go into too much detail about, because it's that person's story as much as it is mine. And basically I came home. It was in no way that person's fault. It was, I would have come home no matter what, because it was a big thing, and I had to think. Well, I didn't even have to think. I just had to book a flight, and that was really difficult because I had no money. I hadn't been paid properly for quite some time. That was all a bit of a nightmare. But friends out there helped me out and lent me the money to come home. I would have been stuck. And that's people who you've only just met for a couple of months, you know what I mean? And I've paid all that money back now. But, that was amazing in itself. So, yeah, I came home. Everything was quite difficult and up in the air for quite a while. And I think because also I was very aware of my own mental health, because I'd been having such a great time out there, and I'd been so positive and calm, and like even when my son came out, it's like, oh my God, you're like a different person, because I was a different person, because I wasn't responsible for anybody else. I was quite poor, but it didn't matter. I had an amazing social life. I was meeting people who, were similar-minded as me, because they'd all travelled the world. And I really wanted to bring that sort of peace home with me, even knowing I was coming home to face like a big storm, basically. So I think at that point I'd started thinking about the podcast and what I could do, and also, using my partner's studio, because it was all set up and ready to go and everything. And then, so I started it, and I really enjoyed it and loved it. And I think we've had this conversation before, Faye, where I said to you at the time, I really resented my job. Even though it's a really good job and I love the people who I work with. But once I started doing the podcast, that sort of fell away, because I was able to be getting my creative sort of, adventurous side out by trying something new and, setting out on a new venture, really. So that was really helpful. So, yeah, I just started the podcast and got to meet some amazing people. I think it really helped me sort of therapeutically, really, have something to focus on outside of what was going on in my life.
Yeah, I understand that. So you also kind of changed your lifestyle a little bit to accommodate the podcast by taking a day off a week at work.
Yeah, so I think I've been doing that for a little bit anyway. So again, my boss is amazing, and the university are a great employer, and they allowed me to squash all my hours into 4 days, so that I could have Fridays off. And at first I wasn't doing a lot with those Fridays, do you know what I mean? I've always been like a sort of a creative person. I'm a frustrated writer in that I have all these thoughts in my head, but I never actually write anything down.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are like that, aren't they? And so yeah, I wasn't really using it a lot for much. And then once the podcast idea started to form, still now, I use those days for anything to do with the podcast. And yeah, so that really helped me sort of balance out in my mind how I felt about work, because then it felt like I didn't feel like I was like, I don't know, wasting my life in an admin job. I felt like I was doing something worthwhile with my extra time, and it really helped me balance out, and just feel happy at work, really, which is good.
That's great. That's really fascinating. So many people, I think, do find creativity a real support.
Yeah.
And a need.
Yeah, like an outlet as well, I think, really. Yeah.
Absolutely, and yet creativity can be so undervalued in this country.
Yeah, it can be, yeah.
Don't we know it? But it's obviously a necessity for so many people, and probably, without wishing to sound preachy, and I know best, probably a necessity for people who don't even realise it in some way,
I think so, yeah. I mean, a lot of the guests that I have on the podcast, a lot of the talk is about how art can help mental health in like various ways. And I think it's definitely true. And a lot of the people that I speak to, stories, various forms of art, it can be theatre, it can be writing, it can be drawing, performing in any way. Yeah, I think it's true, definitely, that finding, or just even giving yourself a little bit of time. Like, you might never have tried, I don't know, watercolour or drawing before, but just give it a go, because it's not really about the piece coming out as perfect. It's kind of about the process.
I couldn't agree more. It is definitely not about the outcome for many of us. Obviously, if that's what you do for a living, it very much is. But for us, putting along, doing it for ourselves, it's definitely not about a perfect finished piece. It is that time out, focus, and the enjoyment of it.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
And it's really interesting that yours is about other people. So it is a focus for you, and it is creative, and you thoroughly enjoy doing it and get a lot from it. But yours is about other people and an external process.
Yeah, and I just think it's really... I always thought when I started out... I worried a little bit at first, like, I wonder if I'm going to run out of people eventually. Because obviously I'm from South Leeds, so I started off with the people who I know about around here. But it's it just has grown exponentially, because I quite often I always say to guests, if you know of anyone who's doing great things, you think would make a great guest, do let me know. And I found out about... I knew there was a lot going on in Leeds, but I had no idea until I started looking myself, and digging a little bit deeper. It's citywide, and a lot of it is about people and understanding and being helpful, and and doing things, and not necessarily like making themselves out in any way to be heroes, which they are to me. Very humble, and I just think it's a really what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it just makes you feel great when you get to speak to people who are doing so many positive, wonderful things.
Absolutely. I did a similar thing when I went freelance 3 years ago, just like you, just took a leap of faith, really. And as soon as I did that, I started discovering exactly what you're saying, all this other stuff going on in Leeds that I had no idea about.
Yeah.
There are some incredible people doing incredible things in every area of life, and sometimes I want to shout about everybody. I just think I can't.
You're in the perfect job for it, Faye.
I know, but I can't do everything I want to do. And people like you, finding people like you, and people setting up people in the bars, and artists and theatre makers, and people volunteering for who are poor and hungry and needy. And this is an incredible city. I'm sure there's a zillion others out there, but I'm born and bred in Leeds, and I'm very passionate about it. And so are you. But you're not, as you said, originally from here.
I'm not. No. Well, I'm a real hodgepodge. So I was born in Germany because my dad was in the army.
Right.
But I don't remember that at all. And my mum and dad split up, and she moved back and then we grew up in County Durham with my two sisters. And then we moved to North Yorkshire, to where my grandparents lived, to a little town called Malton, which I absolutely loved living in when I was younger. My mum seems to think I've got something against it because I moved to Leeds, but I haven't. They're all still there, bless them. And it's a lovely place to visit, but once I became an adult and I've had dates, it can be quite a stifling sort of place. It's, it's absolutely lovely and picturesque and beautiful. And I'm sure some people love living in a place where everybody knows each other's business, but it wasn't my bag. So anyway, eventually we came to Leeds. We moved to York after Malton, lived in York for a little bit when Jay was small, and that was nice. And then Will got a place at Leeds College of Music, so that's why we ended up coming here in the first place. And I'd gone back to university as a mature student when Jay was small, and I'd just finished at York St John. I was just wrapping up my last year when we moved here. So yeah, that's how come we ended up in Leeds. And my mum quite often says to me, Hazel, why do you love Leeds so much? Even though she listens to all the podcasts. Why do you love Leeds so much? And and she sort of says, can you really say that you're from there? But I've been here 16 years, and funnily enough, a lot of the guests who've come on the podcast have kind of answered that question for me, and that, especially people who are not from here and maybe not even from this country, it's just the kind of city that it kind of like welcomes you in, and before long you feel like you belong, even if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really common. A lot of people come to study and stay, never leave. That's a really common one. We used to have a saying when I was kids, saying all roads lead to Leeds.
Yeah, I think it's that really, and I think my son's an absolutely huge and avid Leeds United supporter. I mean, I don't particularly know a lot about football or particularly care about it, but I love as well that whole passion. Do you know what I mean? And like when somebody explained to me about Leeds is a special city because we're a one football city, and that's quite unusual, which I'd never really thought about, and maybe that's partly as well what makes it. And I love that phrase, we're all Leeds, aren't we, which I'm sure annoys the hell out of people who are not from here. But I think that's a beautiful thing, and it sort of sums up Leeds as well. And I just like the fact that it's northern. I love the mix between old and new, which it doesn't always get right, but quite a lot it does. There's just so many things that I love about the city, and I'd be reluctant to leave, to be honest now.
Yeah, it sounds it. What have you seen change in 16 years? Have you noticed the changes?
I've seen quite a lot of changes, especially in the centre of town. I mean, some of them are a little bit worrying because what I particularly love, my son lives in Liverpool, and one of the great things about Liverpool that I think, don't tell Leeds, but I think it does perhaps slightly better is they seem to really support young up-and-coming little independent shops and businesses and bars and restaurants, which Leeds does do, but there seems to more and more have been a big emphasis on big business, shiny monoliths. And I love architecture, and I think the Victoria Gate, I mean, I know it's, some people hate it, some people love it, I think it's beautiful. However, I can't afford to shop in there. And I worry about... And fine if some people can, and that's fine. That's just capitalism, crack on. But I think it's a little bit... I'm worried about it overshadowing the market, because I absolutely love the market, and I feel like the market is like all of life goes on in there. It's a very sort of... I suppose an undercover indoor market is quite a working class kind of thing. We had one of those in Stanley where I grew up in County Durham, and I really loved spending weekends there with my nana, and there'd be like pet shops and carpet stores and then a random toy shop, and I love the mishmash of everything, which Kergate Market kind of reminds me of, but on a grander scale. So
the market is superb. Market's part of my history, it's part of my life, is that market. I kind of think they did it all right in the end. What do you think?
I think they did do it. They did do it all right. I mean, at some point, I'd like to get a market trader on to sort of hear their point of view. Really, it does seem okay so far, and I don't feel like it's been swallowed. But I mean, a time will tell, won't it? But I'm hoping that the spirit of the market will never die, and that no one will ever let it go.
I think a lot of us in Leeds are very passionate about that. So
I think so,
and I think perhaps even the council's on board with that.
But,
and a friend of mine, I don't know if you know her, Liz Cotton. She's a chef. She opened home restaurant.
Oh right, I know the restaurant. Yeah.
Well, she opened the Owl in the market, which is kind of fine dining. So it's right on the Butcher's Row and all the seafood things. She uses all the local products, and it's like this fine dining restaurant right in the heart of the market. She's Leeds born and bred and is really passionate about it. She just wanted to do something different.
And how's she finding it going there?
I think, well, we'll have to get her on. You'll have to ask her.
I will, yeah. I definitely will.
I'll put you in touch. I've just seen, obviously in COVID, everything's shut, but I just saw the Owl are starting a takeaway.
Oh, good.
Or a delivery. I can't remember which one, but I saw it on Instagram. But yes, the market is so Leeds.
Yeah, and I've said it loads of times, but especially on Instagram, where I take a picture of the market and I'm like, have you even been to Leeds if you didn't visit the market? Does it count if you haven't actually gone to Kirkgate Market?
Such a beautiful building as well, isn't it?
It really is iconic. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love going in. I love everything about it. So the changes are things like Victoria Gate.
Yeah, but some things haven't changed a lot. Ever since we first lived here, there was talk about regeneration across the river in the south of Leeds, and you can definitely see it in Holbeck. There's definitely been regeneration there. Bizarrely, a lot of that funding came from the EU.
The evil EU.
But look what an amazing job they've done of Holbeck. And that's fantastic. But I really do feel like Beeston, it hasn't got here yet. And in some ways, I don't want it to become like gentrified, and it's not like, I don't know. It's very difficult, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you'd like places to improve and look better, but you don't want the spirit to be taken out of them.
I couldn't agree anymore. That's so right.
And one of the particular... Sorry.
No, I was just saying, when you said that about Holbeck, the bit of Holbeck you're talking about that's had a lot of money spent on it, I still don't class as Holbeck.
No, maybe not. Maybe like Holbeck, its actual self, not a lot's gone on, and maybe it's sort of very on the face. It's the bit that you drive through, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's lovely, and I love it, and I celebrate it, and there's some good pubs down there, but that Holbeck Urban Village is not Holbeck proper.
Oh, I'm more talking about, like sort of near where Slunglow is, where they've built those nice flats and they've redone those houses. Yeah, but I agree with you completely. It didn't even enter my mind, weirdly. But yeah, I agree with you completely. The Holbeck Urban Village, that just seems to me to be a little bit too shiny and posh and corporate, and it's not actually about the people of Holbeck itself.
I don't agree anymore. Yeah, I agree. And so... And again, I lived in Holbeck as a kid and I was brought up in Beeston. I know it very well, but although I haven't visited, I've still got family there. I kind of don't, of course, it deserves money and support and all that other stuff, but you wouldn't want the spirit of it to change either, would you?
No, and I know it's, there's different parts of Beeston. So, I've discovered quite a lot of them whilst on my COVID walks that I didn't even know existed, where I was like, oh my God, what is this luxury? I've never seen such a beautiful part, which I don't get to see. But, one of the things that I particularly love about living in Beeston, which might sound bizarre to some people, but I quite enjoy the lawlessness of it. It's like it's its own enclave and no one bothers. and I quite like that spirit, to be honest.
The rebellious nature, the punk rock.
Yeah, and then also because we haven't been living here very long, and I hate to bring it up because I hate the fact that it gets linked with Beeston, but I'm going to bring it up just for this story. When the bombings happened in London, and it tragically turned out that some people in this community were apparently responsible. I was working and Jay was at school, and I remember Will ringing me and saying, the schools have been evacuated, and we couldn't believe it. But one of the stories that I absolutely loved was, it was rumoured that a big bus of sort of National Front people turned up, ready to sort of stoke up sort of racial fighting between sort of Asian people and white people, because it's a very big Pakistani, Bangladeshi community. And what I loved about this was there was a lot of sort of hard working class Beeston white men who all went up and met that bus and told them quite clearly that they would deal with anything that was going on in this town and they did not need support from elsewhere. And I don't think as politely as that, told that bus to get back to where it had come from. And I really loved that story because, and there was no racial fighting here about it because the whole community was in shock. Everybody knew that their parents had no idea about what had happened. They were all like upstanding members of the community that everyone knew, ran businesses here and things like that. And I just thought, you know, out of something so tragic and horrible, and things could have been really messy and nasty, they weren't because as a whole community we stuck together. And I love that story. And I mean, I just think it just sums up. We're very poor. We don't have a lot. We don't always conform to the law, but we all stick together. I like that.
I like that story a lot. I was away living in Birmingham when that happened, and as I say, I was brought up in Beeston. So I felt that same complete shock.
Yeah.
And my worry was, is this going to be associated with Beeston going for? Is that it going forward? Everything else that's happening, is this what it's going to come down to? And it didn't.
Well, I mean, there's been. I think it was Ed Carlisle got quite cross about a local paper, and he was saying, I think he wrote the local paper sort of saying, every time we bring business, we don't have to mention, we don't want to just be, you know, and it's sort of the way it's couched in the press, really. Whereas really people from Beeston, I think, as much as it was, you know, awful and a tragedy, you know, as a community, we're proud of the fact that it didn't divide us, and that's the story that should be taken away. Yeah,
exactly. You know, this is allegedly a couple of individuals, and we have no idea of that story really. That's a really good story that I didn't know, and I'm going to dine out on that one. I think. I'm gonna pinch it from
you can pinch away. Yeah, I'm really proud of that.
It's lovely. So you haven't been in Beeston for 16 years?
Yeah, the whole time, never moved.
Oh, right, great.
Yeah, and to be honest, when I first lived here, I spent quite a lot of time, put a lot of energy, I think I can't wait to get out of here. I think because I'd come from such a removed place than this, and my son was small, and I worried about, you know, him going to school and stuff like that. And I think nobody in my family's ever owned their own home, so I don't know why it got into my head, but for a long time that was kind of like the be all and end all for me, like working towards that. Because I think you sort of told that story really, and it's only really been, I'd say, in the last sort of 10 years that I sort of came to accept where I live and enjoy it and like it actually, and stop chasing this made up strange capitalist dream of owning your own home, which is not necessary. So yeah, I love living here now, and I have done for quite a while. And I mean, there's been times when I've thought about living somewhere else, but I just love crazy old Beeston really. And I've you know, some of the characters around here, you know, you could some people could like be worried about them, whatever, but I know them all. I'm friends with them all, so I don't have to worry. So yeah, that's nice.
Back in the 80s, when I was living in the 80s, 90s, there was a character known as the Beeston Cowboy.
Oh, right.
He used to wander around Beeston. An older guy walking around Beeston used to shoot. He had a cowboy hat on and he used to shoot you with his fingers.
Oh, I wish I'd seen that, Faye. That sounds so Beeston.
Very, very Beeston. Everybody loved him. Everybody knew him. Everybody said hello to him, and just let this guy walk around being a cowboy.
Oh, that's amazing.
Love it. It's interesting you should say it took you 6 years to kind of feel at peace, if you like, with where you live, because I've had the exact sense. I've been where I am now 11 years, which is the longest I've ever lived in one house. I moved here because I met my husband, who's already living here and already had this house.
Yeah. And
before COVID, I'm going to be really honest, I did not like this area at all.
Really?
It's part of Leeds I didn't know, and I'm only up the road from Holbeck and Beeston. I found it really difficult. It's classed as a village. We are really lucky. We're surrounded by fields. We've got a very short walk to the woods, blah, blah, all that. There's nothing else here. There's a co-op, a pub and a community centre.
Yeah.
Which is great because they just don't exist anymore. Anyway, this all happened, and we went out to do on the first, what's now controversial, applaud for NHS and key workers.
Oh, yeah.
We went out, we went out to do that, and now I'm friends with all the neighbours. 11 years been here. All the neighbours, we're all friends on Facebook. We go out every Thursday just to see each other and have a drink.
Oh, that's so lovely.
it's been so eye-opening, so brilliant. And do you know what? I think you've been, and this is not a word I would ever associate with myself, but I have to admit it, I think you've been a bit of a snob. I don't know in what way, I just don't know why it took me so long to affect the area I was living in.
And how strange that it's took, something as mental as lockdown. But I mean, it's even the same here. I've got like a group of names that we all know each other, but you're spending so much time outside and that's another thing I'm lucky about, because we live in back-to-back terraces, which I often have to explain to Americans and they do not understand it. Because it is strange. But one of the good things about that is that, I can stand in my garden, I'm still 2 metres away from whoever, and we can all chat. And like you say, I mean, I've known my neighbours anyway, but I've like widened my circle really. And there are some people in Beeston, how can I put this diplomatically, maybe struggling with their very own individual problems, and are not having like the best life. And I think similar to you, like I've kind of dropped my guard quite a bit, and there are people who I wouldn't have gone out of my way to have a conversation with because their lives are complicated and difficult. I didn't want to get messed up in that. But actually, I've even met extra people and spoken to people that I would perhaps not have done before, because we're all in this situation together and everyone needs somebody to talk to.
That's exactly it. I feel like a bit of a different person, really, and better for it, better for it. I mean, just before it all happened, I'd made this decision in myself to do a bit more. I didn't know what it was going to be, whether it was going to be volunteering or what, but do something a bit more in the community, because everything felt so divided because of political happenings. I felt it was really divided, and I felt like I'd go on Facebook and rant about stuff, and then I thought, do you know what? You don't know other people's lives, you don't know what's going on. Why don't you try and look a bit more closer to home and have a look at stuff, which led me to interviewing the fabulous Mick Artistic as a performer from Armagh, and interviewed him for West Leeds Dispatch. And that came direct response of me thinking, I want to do something more. So West Leeds Dispatch is a online, like South Leeds Life. It's exactly like South Leeds Life, only for West Leeds. But I'll go have a look here and see, because this is where I live. Look at what I can do, and did that. I was telling you that for a reason, I can't remember. But just about being open a bit more to where I live. And it's just carried on with this as well. So it's interesting. I'm really glad you're enjoying Beeston.
Yeah, you can't not. I mean, it's just absolutely. You couldn't even make things up that happen around here. Do you know what I mean? Like if I wrote a script based on things that people would just literally think it was like so far-fetched, like, oh, you're just rewriting Shameless. No, that's what it's like around here.
Absolutely, and you should write that script. You actually should write that script. We should do it together. I can come from 80s angle.
Yeah, definitely.
You could come from 2000. That's great. So the tables are turning, Hazel. The tables are turning. I've got 3 questions for you.
Oh, okay.
I bet you can't guess what they are.
I might have a faint idea.
You might have a faint idea. So for any new listeners, Hazel asks each person that she speaks to the same 3 questions, and now during Corona bloody virus, as she so lovingly calls it, as an extra 4th one, which we'll get to. So everybody that comes on this programme, this podcast, is asked to answer the next few questions we're going to do. And it might start a whole new topic of conversation, who knows? But let's go with Hazel's first question. We might have already covered this in a way, but Hazel, what is great about Leeds?
I think I have kind of covered it to some extent. But yeah, it's just reiterating what I was saying, really. I just feel like it's a really multicultural city, so it's dead interesting. I've learned so much from living here. I was a school business manager at the local primary school, which was, at the time, I think it was like 90% children spoke English as a second language. And, just through that job alone, I got to learn so much more about Islam, for example. I didn't know anything about Islam, I didn't know about Eid, or why people do the things that they do. And, I think working there made me become part of the community and realise how fabulous Leeds is. And, I'm sure you get that in a lot of big cities, but yeah, there's just this feeling of sort of inclusiveness. And what I also like is, I know people talk about this a lot, about sort of north-south divide, but it is true. You can just get chatting to somebody on a bus in Leeds. They'll just start talking to you and they'll have a really interesting story, or, you know, there's just a real friendliness about the whole city, I think. You could stop and ask anyone, maybe not always bus drivers, but you can stop and ask someone anything and they'll go out of the way to help you or show you the way. So yeah, it's the friendliness of the city and the inclusiveness, and it's just made me feel like this is my home. So yeah, that's my answer.
That's lovely, and you are very welcome. I used to hate that everybody's friendly up north thing. I really, really disliked it. I just thought that, and then I went away and a bit further south. And when I came back, I really noticed it. So yeah, I'm with you on that, and I think there is a fact in that for sure. And we may have covered this as well, but because it's one of yours, it's your podcast, and we're doing Returning the Tables, I'd still like to ask you what is not so great about the city.
Do you know, I've thought about this a lot, and obviously I've had loads of guests who've had various brilliant answers. Some of them are similar, some of them are not. But I'm going to avoid the elephant in the room that everybody talks about, and say, for me personally, the thing that's not so great about the city is that it's not near the seaside. That's the only thing. Like, you have to travel quite far to get to the seaside, and I love visiting the sea. So yeah, my only complaint about Leeds is that it's not close enough to a seaside, but that is all I'm going to say negative about it.
We are very landlocked, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can always go to the canals.
We can. There's a lot of canals, and that's very nice. There's some beautiful lakes and things that you can visit. We're very lucky in that respect, yeah.
We are. We did, before this happened, we've been dog walking around Grimwith Reservoir, which is a 3 hours drive. Oh man, it's so fabulous out there. It's so bleak and wild and amazing and beautiful. I like that answer. That's good, because yes, there are a lot of other negatives we could talk about, but
yeah,
we're here to be a bit celebratory today, I think, given it's your birthday. Yeah. So your question number 3 is, if someone was a long-term resident of Leeds, could you tell us of a hidden gem they've never heard of?
Oh, this is quite a difficult one. Everybody always says it's a difficult one as well. I mean, there's lots of...
want to give it away.
Well, yeah. Well, I've had I think it was a lady from Sequels Pairs who said that she didn't want to... Oh, was it? I think it was. She didn't want to say where it was because she didn't want to spoil it with everybody else. I don't know how secret this is, but well, if you're not from Leeds, of course, Whitelocks could be quite a secretive thing because it's off down an alley and it's a beautiful old pub. And when you're sat in there, there's just something that makes you feel like you're in like a Sherlock Holmes detective TV series, you know, when you're sat having your pint out there. But I mean, I know lots of people do know about that. Also, I think one of my favourite places that I think I've literally taken everyone who's ever visited me in Leeds is an Italian restaurant down Dock Street called Ciao Bella.
Yes.
And it's family run, and we go there like all the time, and I know like one of the owners quite well now, just from going a lot. And they do just the most amazing. They do an amazing lunchtime deal because I'm not loaded. I can't afford to eat out that often. But they do an amazing lunchtime deal that's about the same price as it costs you to go to McDonald's or wherever and get a meal. And you're getting like authentic Italian food. And the building is beautiful. And if it's a nice day, you can sit outside. Also, I don't know if I should say this really, but I'm gonna. The dad who owns it, the son's really lovely and chatty and lovely, and the dad's really nice, but he can sometimes look a little bit grumpy. I don't know if it's just that he's got one of those sort of grumpy resting faces, and he looks just so much like Gru from Despicable Me that it always adds to my enjoyment of going there.
I wonder if he's listening.
Well, if he is, he's a lovely man, and it's a great restaurant, and I don't mean to offend him, but he does look just like Gru from Despicable Me.
That's fantastic. I do know Ciao Bella very well. We used to go for my stepdaughter's birthday every year. That was our thing. And before meeting girlfriends, we'd go at lunchtime deal with a glass of wine. And
it's perfect.
Yeah, it's beautiful and stuff, and the food is great. You're right. I that's a good one. I'm so going to go there when we can go out.
Oh, me too. That's going to be one of the first places I go to.
Yeah, well, that's maybe where we should meet.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
That'd be a great idea. Yes, I like that. So we've got Ciao Bella and the fabulous White Locks, which I believe is one of the oldest pubs in Europe.
I think it is, but then somebody contradicted me. I can't remember who it was. It might have been... There's a book called How Leeds Changed the World by Mick McCann. It might have been in there. I can't remember. Somebody did put doubt in my mind about whether it was the oldest pub, but I still think that it is whenever I'm in there. I'll just maintain that thought.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the oldest ones.
It's got to be. It's got that beautiful big brass bar, hasn't it, when you walk in? And
just
yeah. Yeah, I love it.
Stomping ground as a teenager. We lived in White Locks. Loved it.
Yeah.
So, and now we come to the question that you've created especially for our times, these times that we are currently living in and through, the Corona Bloody Virus Extraordinary episodes. So, Hazel, everything is the same as previously described, except that we'll now... Oh, no, sorry, I'm reading something wrong. You'll have to edit that. We want to ask you how you are coping with lockdown, if you've got any hints or tips for coping, and can you see anything positive that could come out of it all?
I feel guilty in lots of ways because it's not... Apart from not being able to see my family and hug them, which is obviously a huge thing, I don't mind it. Like, I've always dreamed about working from home. So I'm enjoying that, and I'm really lucky because I work at the university and they've supplied me with a really good laptop to do that. And I know that this isn't the same for everyone, but like I was saying to you, because I've had a really tough last couple of years, which precipitated me doing the podcast in the first place, and it's given me the focus to sort of keep me going through a lot of bad things. And I broke up with my partner in January, and we've been together for 20 years, so obviously that was huge. Yeah, and so really, in general, I feel like what happens is you live your life and you're kind of just fighting fire all the time, you're just dealing with things as they come at you, bang, bang, bang. But having this space and this time to self-reflect after such a turbulent couple of years has actually been really good for me, sort of spiritually, and just being able to get myself back on an even keel, really. Because I've had plenty of time and space to sort of have time to really think through a lot of things. And like I mentioned on Amy's podcast, my friend has strongly encouraged me to get rid of my anger and do some meditation, which, you know, I'm sure to some people might seem, you know, like something and nothing, but it has actually really helped me because it's giving yourself sort of permission. And also the thing about, you know, thoughts go in your head all the time, and meditation is not about telling yourself off for that happening, because I think if you ever got to the point where you weren't thinking any things, you'd be sort of levitating in some amazing, you know, Buddhist amazing person. But yeah, it's really helped me actually, and I know it's really tough for lots of people, and I'm really worried about all the lovely independent businesses and will they be able to open, and you know, and it's affected so many people in such a terrible way. But yeah, for me personally, it's not too bad. I'm doing all right. I've got friends nearby me, and also, you know, we're living in a time of technology, so you can keep in touch with everybody. So even though you're not physically with people, you know, I've always spoken to my mum often, but I speak to my mum and my sisters more often now than I was before, because we're all checking in on each other, which is a lovely thing, and my son as well. So yeah, and what I'm doing during this time is I've been doing extra podcasts. I was going to give up when coronavirus hit. I was like, well, do you know what I mean? You know, I've had all sorts of different things happen to me. My partner's business failed, but I kept going. We split up. I kept going. Then COVID virus, like, I don't think I could take anymore. And then I found it. Well, Amelia helped me find a way. Another guest who was like, oh, why don't you try clean feed? And I was like, it's not so difficult. So yeah, that's helped me keep going. I get to speak to at least two, sometimes more than that, amazing people every week who are doing inspirational things. So yeah, that's helped me. Also, I really love, I don't know if you've seen it, Grayson's Art Club on a Monday. It's so wonderful and it makes me feel great. And not just because of that, I've always been like, I'm a Gemini, so I basically start projects and finish them. So I've tried all sorts of different crafts. I've got all sorts of projects in various states of unfinishedness. But yeah, just painting, drawing, trying to make things. I made some birthday cards for family, and just giving yourself permission again to be crap, and it doesn't actually matter. It's just having a go and letting your mind go a bit.
That's really interesting. Do you think for you then, will you, at some point, we're going to return to, I don't think things will be ever like they were, but we are going to return to some kind of, inverted commas, normality. So you will go back to the university, or maybe not, maybe they'll let you work from home, but let's assume you go back. Do you think, what will change for you after this?
I think in general, well, it's very difficult to say, isn't it? It's quite scary because as much as I love going to pubs and restaurants, if they said tomorrow that they were all open, I would not be rushing out to go to anything for quite some time, because I'm very reluctant to assume everything's better, because I'm not 100% sure it is. And I think
changed, really,
no. And I think it sort of ties in with the other question about, what do you hope will change? I think I'm, again, very lucky the university are not rushing to get any of us back there, which is fantastic. And I think that even one of the things that I hope does change is that hopefully we'll all continue to be kind and look out for each other. And also we can look at, there are different ways of doing things. Like, I think the university start to realise that there's no huge deficit from us working at home. I'm sure there's some people who really love working in an office and want to go out every single day, and that's fine for them. But I think we're all realising that it's not as necessary as we thought it was. So for me personally, I was getting, because I'm based at St James's, so I get 2 buses to work every day and 2 buses back. And that's 4 days a week, and that's one person. Look at all of that pollution that's not happening.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping that things don't go back to normal, in inverted commas, as we know, and that there are different ways of working things. And also, because when you work all the time, you don't always have time to sort of prioritise your morals, for example. So you end up going to big supermarkets because it's easy and convenient. Whereas during lockdown, it's made me think a lot harder about where I shop, how I shop, and why I shop.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of other people have done that too. And I think it's fantastic that so many people I've spoken to have had to adapt very quickly to change the way that they work. So looking at maybe selling things online, or how they relate to their customers, or, all the little places that we know about, like Neil's Greengrocers in Kirkgate Market and Malcolm's Butchers, and they're delivering now. And, I used to make a point of always trying to go to Kirkgate Market at least once a week, buy some things that I feel like I'm supporting the local economy. But now that sort of, in a way, feels like it's easier to do for some people, not for everybody. I hope that really we don't return to normal, inverted commas, and that it does, that lots of positive things can continue, hopefully.
Let's hope so. I think, Hazel, it's been so great talking to you. I know you've had a really tough few years, and that this kind of, although it's something I always wanted to do, it's kind of came out of that process for you, and has been very healing. 2020 didn't start off too great, and
no.
and then here you are, still doing what you love and want to do, finding other ways to do it. And I think that says a lot about your character, and you should be really fucking proud.
Thank you so much, Faye. That's really nice. Well, thank you so much for offering to interview me. I wouldn't have thought of it.
I've loved it. It was great. I hope I've done a decent job.
You have.
It's nowhere near as good as yours.
You've done Little Leeds justice. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really proud, and I shall be shouting about it. And I wish you a very, very happy birthday. Keep going. I'll keep sending you fabulous people.
Yeah.
We'll all keep tuning in.
Thank you so much, Faye. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Angie, I'll see you at Ciao Bella soon.
Yeah. I very much enjoyed talking to Faye. Ridiculously, I was incredibly nervous before the podcast recording, when I spend most of my time telling future guests, or guests that are coming up, please don't worry, it's just a lovely casual chat. And there I was, not been able to sleep the night before and feeling nervous myself. So well done, Faye Dawson, because she made me feel less nervous. And I hope you enjoyed listening to it. And because I always choose a track by a Leeds-based band or artist, and I get sent all sorts of amazing things,
For this one, I was sent a track a couple of weeks ago called Mr. How Much by XP, and I love the music. I love the fact that he sings in his own accent, and I adore the lyrics. So do have a listen.
Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? There's nothing I love more than the Samuel Smith pub. There's one called the Shoulder of Mutton in Bradford, and you can get 2 pints for a fiver and come back with change. But unfortunately the rest of England isn't the same. All the bars in Leeds charge at least £4 a pint. You can tell me to get with the times, but it's Yorkshire, I'm tight. I'm not about to break a tenner for a drink with a mate and £2 for a bag of crisps. Give me your break, this a mistake, it says my cup of coffee was £4. You just mix some water with granules and poured it. People in the service industry are living off your tips, cause the company pays them no, which is of course but capitalism got us passive instead of acting livid. Companies increase their profit, people add the difference, and they can dodge the tax cause they're providing the jobs. Be like me and decided the cost too high for them costs. I'm Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? I went on a stag do to London the other year. £5.50 for a mother chuffing beer. I was broke by the first night. London's so super. Plus my mate had his phone nicked by some guy on a scooter. How the hell do people manage Polish, English and Spanish, African, Hispanic, Asian, Danish, Islamic to rent a property in Zone 4's like 3 times the cost of a flat in central Bradford? See why I'm lost? The local spa is selling orange juice a couple quid more than any place in the north, and I just can't ignore. I walk in and look to buy some stuff, then walk out, cause I'd rather go hungry and thirsty than fork out. So chuff London and chuff capital cities. People gravitate towards them, and it's a pity the streets are paved with gold directly from your wallet, but there are more opportunities here. Oh, stop it. Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? A poor man can't afford to buy cheap clothes. A tight man waits for Christmas so family can buy those. I don't mean they're cheap, I just mean I don't have to pay for them. I've been wearing the same boxers and socks since a teenager, and my shirts are mainly hand-me-downs from my wife's uncle. Not cause he grew out of them, just cause he had a bundle. I'll take it if it's going, don't be wasting it on charity. Saying I'll wear the same things isn't going to embarrass me. Men are supposed to buy engagement rings with 3 months salary. I got a family heirloom when I asked Ange to marry me, and actually I found that spending lavishly is bad for me. I don't go anywhere with cash on me, the missus handbag has to be in attendance at all times, cause my wallet ain't. We've got a joint account, I'm not so tight, she's got to pay. But if we walk into a place cause the food sounds good, I'm still staring at the menu thinking, how much? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much, Mr. How much, Mr. How much are you charging? Mr. How much,